These faces will never be seen again. This story isn't about a crash. It's about a disappearance. The disappearance of 239 people. This footage, never broadcast, was recorded by the Kuala Lumpur airport security camera. 12 crew members, 227 Chinese, Malaysian, Australian and French passengers are about to board flight MH370. It's 27 minutes past midnight on the 8th of March 2014. Malaysia Airlines' daily flight to Beijing is ready to depart. In the cockpit, the pilots are contacting the control tower.
Malaysia 370, good morning. You want requesting push and start. Kuala Lumpur, morning, push back and start. Runway, take the right and take by Sierra 4. 370, to right of takeoff.
At 42 minutes past midnight, the Boeing 777 slowly drags itself off the ground, flies over Kuala Lumpur, as it does every evening. The flight to Beijing should take 6 hours. The weather forecast is excellent. The plane was checked 2 weeks ago. The captain is experienced. At 1:19 a.m., 40 minutes after takeoff, he speaks with air traffic control one last time.
Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9.
2 minutes later, between Malaysia and Vietnam, the plane shuts down all communications and vanishes into the night. In the first hours of daylight, in Kuala Lumpur and in Beijing, total confusion reigns. The passengers' families don't understand what's happened to their loved ones. Malaysia takes charge of the investigation. Early information is contradictory, and journalists are kept well away. A week after the disappearance, the Malaysian Prime Minister speaks for the first time.
Up until the point at which it left military primary radar coverage, these movements are consistent with deliberate action by someone on the plane.
That day, he presents the official scenario of the disappearance of MH370. At 1:21 a.m., having shut down all communications, the plane is thought to have turned back, as evidenced by several Malaysian military radars, and flown back across Malaysia, changing direction several times. From 2:22 a.m., the scenario is based on data provided by a British company specializing in satellite geolocation, Inmarsat. Apparently, communication with the plane had not been completely lost. It had continued sending out short signals, or pings. With some clever calculation, Inmarsat states that it would have flown towards the south of the Indian Ocean for 6 hours and disappeared there, for good this time, in an area 5 times the size of Sicily. Malaysia then hands over the search operations to Australia. Dozens of planes, ships and submarines are deployed. Sonars and highly sophisticated video cameras comb the area for months on end. Collaboration between both countries appears to be effective.
That search will continue until all that is humanly possible to be done has been done to scour the probable impact zone.
After nearly 3 years of searching, nothing. Not a single trace of the wreck, not a single body found. $180 million down the drain. MH370 has become the biggest mystery in the history of aviation. A puzzle which has given rise to the craziest suggestions. Conspiracy theories run wild online. For some, these pictures from the International Space Station show two giant UFOs capturing the plane. Others are positive that it's been hijacked by the CIA to recover a mysterious, super-secret drone. Yet another accuses the Russians of having buried the undamaged plane in Kazakhstan. We've contacted all the authorities involved in the investigation. First, Inmarsat, who provided the satellite data.
We are not going to speak any further because all we're doing is just creating or potentially creating confusion and distress for the families.
The British company refers us to Australia, in charge of search operations at sea, which invites us to contact the Malaysian authorities in charge of the investigations. This is how the Malaysians reply. We're still waiting to hear from them. That's when we decided to talk to Blaine Gibson, a rather strange American who found one of the first debris items allegedly belonging to MH370 in Mozambique. He suggested we meet him more than 3,000 miles away from the search area in Madagascar. A former lawyer and entrepreneur turned globetrotter, Blaine Gibson promised us that he would find more wreckage from the missing plane. And he knows exactly where to look for it.
On race.
My ring. Taxi procedure.
Nous allons au nord-est ici, à Île Sainte-Marie. C'est la région du nord-est de Madagascar. C'est très bonne perspective pour trouver du débris de MH370.
MH370 has become an obsession for this man with a passion for travel and mysteries. He spends most of his time and a good chunk of his money on it. And yet Blaine Gibson has no official mandate. Part Indiana Jones, part Sherlock Holmes.
Est-ce qu'il y a des gens ici qui ont parlé sur la possibilité qu'un débris, une pièce d'un avion peut arriver ici?
Non, j'ai pas encore entendu de quelqu'un qui a trouvé cela.
Pas encore?
Ouais.
Rien?
Oui.
Rien d'officiel, même entre les pêcheurs, ils n'ont rien dit. Où il y a les grandes vagues, où il n'y a pas de récif, ça c'est mieux.
Oui, il n'y a pas de récif là.
Pas de récif, bon. Bon. Pour nous, c'est bon.
He's left behind the beaches of his native California to travel around those in the Indian Ocean. Dozens of islands, thousands of miles. The day after we arrive, we set off on a quad bike to explore the endless beach at Antisiraka. There are no tourists at the northern tip of the island. Tons of waste are regurgitated by the Indian Ocean over dozens of miles. An ideal hunting ground for Blaine.
This beach is a perfect place to search. This debris here, it could be from south of Maldives, it could be from off the south coast of Sumatra, Java Sea, or off the coast of Australia. It could be from anywhere. This is just junk from the ocean. Natural from a squid. These little bits of plastic, who knows where they're from. Fishing boats, large ships, they just throw all their trash overboard, and it floats around in the ocean and washes ashore here. That's where probably almost all of this stuff is trash from boats.
Blaine says he only needs two things to find plane wreckage in this open-air rubbish heap: his eyes and a little luck. It's a gigantic undertaking, but after 3 hours of fruitless search, Blaine stops dead.
Maybe.
At his feet, something looks like a plain wooden plank with a few intriguing details.
Does anyone have a ruler? How many millimeters across this hole? Oh, I'll look in my notes, but I believe these are 4-millimeter holes. These are the holes where the high-lock pins were on no step.
Blaine has kept photos of the famous piece of wreckage he found in Mozambique on his mobile phone. Australian investigators say they're almost certain it comes from the Malaysian plane. The resemblance with this one is striking.
Shit.
Oh, yeah, look.
Oh my God.
Look.
Look at this right here. There's metal. Don't touch it. This is a piece of metal that is inside. And this indicates to me that there is metal inside this, which would make it more likely a plane and less likely a boat. It's the right place, it's the right color, it's the right weight, it's the right strength, so it is possible.
Blaine Gibson may have kept his promise, finding a piece of wreckage that could have belonged to MH370.
So shall we take it back carefully or go on looking for more?
The Australians have been looking for months at the other end of the Indian Ocean without success. He has perhaps made a miraculous find in just a few hours. A strange occupation for this seasoned traveler and puzzle enthusiast. When asked about his motivations, the globetrotter says the affair of the missing Boeing fired his imagination from the start. Since then, he met families of victims. Some of them trust him. That evening, they aren't disappointed. As night falls, Blaine comes back from a new beach expedition with no fewer than 2 other potential debris items.
This could be, if it's from the plane, the monitor screen on the seat in front of you.
The American is hopeful that he's got his hands on a total of 3 new items.
These pieces, if they are from the plane, demonstrate that the plane crashed in a forceful impact in the Indian Ocean, somewhere south of the equator and north of 40.
Despite his enthusiasm, Blaine has a major problem. He has no way of authenticating this wreckage with certainty. To do that, he relies on the Australian investigators, who are also beginning to trust him.
We will send these pictures to the ATSB and see what they say.
If wreckage is so easy to find, why have the official investigators not explored East African beaches themselves? It's hard to understand, because they haven't been idle over the past 3 years. We got hold of the Malaysian police's investigation report. A hefty tome, 1,500 pages, confidential, and in many ways, disturbing. The first volume deals with the person who captained the flight. Zahari Ahmad Shah, a 52-year-old pilot, married, 3 children, a seemingly well-balanced, ordinary man. Statements from family members and colleagues, performance at work, political opinions, health and psychological data reveal nothing. And yet, one chapter catches the eye. The captain owned a particularly sophisticated flight simulator kept in his home. Investigators analyzed the computer's 5 disks. On page 27, they find a flight path that leads to the southern Indian Ocean. One route among the hundreds of others programmed by a pilot who used a simulator on May the 15th, 2014, 2 months after the aircraft went missing. They conclude, however, in the Malaysian and international media, the story was reported rather differently. The existence of the simulator created a sensation. It makes the pilot an ideal culprit, who planned a suicide flight on his simulator, then made the plane disappear at the bottom of the ocean. This media campaign stunned his former colleagues. Gerald Ramesh at Malaysia Airlines was in charge of simulator training for pilots. In his view, Captain Zahari was passionate about his work, the complete opposite of a suicidal man or terrorist.
He's very gentle. Maybe, I don't know, he's a giant or what, but they call it maybe like a gentle giant, very gentle person. You never see him getting angry. I find it very, very hard to find any faults or clause or something negative against him. I find it so difficult to find any negativity.
The simulator the police found wasn't hidden by the captain, quite the opposite. He even shared technical advice on the internet.
Hi everyone, this is a YouTube video that I made.
Here, he explains to aspiring pilots how to cope with a hydraulic system failure.
This video is to be used to optimize your heat pump or your compressor in order to reduce your electric bill.
When he has that thing about the passion to teach, it's so hard to say that he's related to something to do opposite or beyond or push the aircraft to the limits or push it to the sea.
Captain Zahari is seen as cleared of suspicion, but the hijacking theory remains the most probable one, even if the word is never used in the police report. The plane he piloted was a Boeing 777-200ER, similar to this one in every respect. 63 meters long, over 200 tons, and as high as a 5-story building. Not that easy to get rid of.
Un homme debout arrive à peine au centre du réacteur. C'est quelque chose de géant.
Gilles Bordepage is a former captain with 5,000 hours flying time on 777s. This is a plane he knows by heart. He confirms that the only possibility to get hold of such a monster, make it invisible to radars while carrying on flying for 7 hours, is that of human intervention in the cockpit. On MH370, all communication channels were shut down in a few minutes. The SATCOM, which links the plane to several satellites, the 5 radios, and the transponder, which enables radars to identify the aircraft from the ground.
Ça s'apparente à un détournement. Ça veut dire que quelqu'un a fait irruption dans le cockpit. Ça peut être un passager, ça peut être une hôtesse, un steward, ou alors ça peut être un des 2 pilotes. Et puis, avec une contrainte que je ne connais pas, à sciemment tout débrancher. C'est lourd de tout débrancher. C'est pas une manipulation qu'on fait simplement.
Could a breakdown have neutralized all communications in such a short space of time? Unlikely, says Gilles Bordepage. He takes us to a sensitive area no one enters, under this trapdoor near the cockpit entrance.
Pas d'un grand commode.
The electronics bay.
Pour des raisons de sécurité, un pilote ne descend jamais dans la soute électronique. Un pilote n'a rien à faire ici.
In an incredibly tight space, with all the navigation and communication instruments in duplicate and sometimes in triplicate, each with separate power supplies. Only a fire could explain a general failure, but its consequences would not match the official scenario.
S'il y a un feu de soute qui supprime tout ce qui ne marchait plus dans l'avion, au moment où on a perdu sa trace, ça veut dire que c'est un incendie majeur. Et si c'est un incendie majeur, ça détruit l'avion. Ça ne lui permet pas de voler pendant 7 heures derrière.
Human intervention appears to be beyond doubt. But who? Malaysian investigators also tried to find out more about the crew and passengers, taking up 2 volumes of the police report. Hundreds of pages of addresses, phone numbers, payslips, CVs, and the famous footage of the boarding from the security camera. It lasts 40 minutes. On the recording, the police has identified 2 men in particular, 2 young Iranians who were able to board easily with stolen passports. An interesting lead, but an Interpol investigation has shown that they were in fact illegal migrants trying to reach Europe. There is no detailed analysis of the rest of the video, although many anomalies can be spotted, such as the 2 pilots who set off the security portal, shown by the red light coming on. They are barely searched. 2 passengers with prams also trigger the metal detector. They aren't checked. Finally, an airport employee sets the security portal off as he goes through. Neither his badge or his bag are checked. Is this usual? Who is this man? Has the identity of all passengers been verified? Nowhere does it say so in the report. The 5th volume of the report is even hazier. It concerns the MH370's flight path after it turned around. From 1:21 a.m., it was apparently monitored by Malaysian radars. But the report is very vague. The reconstructed flight path incomplete. We're heading to the north of the country, towards the only Malaysian radar mentioned in the report, the one at Butterworth Air Base near Penang. Butterworth, where Major Zaidi, former fighter pilot, has spent his entire career.
On the left is the base, on the right is the quarters, the messes.
This military base is the nerve center of the entire anti-aircraft defense in Malaysia.
That's my plane, F5.
According to the investigation report, after it turned around, MH370 flew back over Malaysia and headed for Penang. It would have flown over the base at 1:52 a.m.
MH370 came from northeast, about here, overhead here, flew towards Penang, and just after Penang, it turned to the northwest.
At that point, MH370 is a ghost plane, out of its flight path, not responding to anyone, destination unknown, representing a potential threat. But the reaction from the military is odd, to say the least. On Butterworth Base, no one makes a move. The military could easily have found out what was happening on board. A fighter plane just needed to take off. Astounding passivity, which the Malaysian Defence Minister justifies on Australian television. The interview veers towards the absurd.
It was not hostile, it was commercial, it was from our airspace, we're not at war with anybody. Even if we send it back, are you going to say that we're going to shoot it down?
Well, you said that, not me.
No, I'm asking you.
I could not possibly answer that. I'm not a Minister of Defence.
If you're not going to shoot it down, what's the point of sending it up?
To see where it's going.
Well, to see it going, you need a fighter for that? If we're talking about military procedures. And if I did shoot it down, you'd be the first to say, how can you shoot down a commercial airline with 14 nationals, half of them Chinese? I'll be in a worse position probably.
Why shoot it down if it's not hostile?
Well, the Americans would.
Is that a barely veiled accusation or a smokescreen behind which the Malaysian Air Force can hide? Major Zaidi has a depressingly simple answer.
This time, we only work office hours, and outside office hours, you are given up to 2 hours to react to any threat. All pilots gone back home. All crew are gone back home.
So you mean there have been a big mistake from the army?
Of course. It's a big blunder, it's a mismanagement, okay? Weak leadership. So now we are paying the price. They should take the blame, but nobody resigned. So that's Malaysia. So sad, but.
Were they unable to react? Did they decide not to take off? In any event, the Malaysians let MH370 slip between their fingers, well and truly. Despite repeated requests, the defense minister refuses to answer our questions. To the point we might doubt the plane actually flew over Penang. The Malaysians have never offered formal proof of having detected the plane after it turned back. We had to make do with a strangely incomplete picture shown to victims' families during an information meeting that doesn't even feature in the police report. It displays successive radars shown here in yellow and enables a tiny part of the flight path to be reconstructed. According to investigators, neighboring countries like Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia, which do have powerful radars, didn't detect anything either. "1,500 pages later, nothing is certain. There is no serious lead. The flight path, the profile of the pilot or potential suspect passengers, not a whisper of an explanation for the missing MH370. It's a weird feeling. The more we learn, the less we know. Haunted by this vagueness, the victims' families keep coming back to the same word, a conspiracy. On flight MH370, most of the passengers were Chinese. Their loved ones no longer trust the official investigation. In central Beijing, we have a meeting in the back room of a restaurant. Master Jiang has lost his mother. 5 members of Mrs. Dai's family were on the plane. Tortured by doubt and suspicion, they are convinced they are being lied to.
I'm ready, my lord. 不仅是我认为，而且我觉得现在的信息公开的程度和我们遭遇的一些情况，已经证明了有人就是在隐瞒信息，不是我认为。
作为我来讲，我和他还不一样，我没有文化。 但是我基本的东西我知道，我有手机，我这手机有定位。你像那个那么高档的370，它是有定位系统的，而且它有报警系统。不可能这架飞机就没有了，长达2年多，10年2年多到现在都找不到。就结合这一点，我觉得，他那个是。 反正这是我的猜测啊，就是我的感觉就是被人藏起来了。
They both think their loved ones are perhaps still alive, held by a government or terrorists.
首先，我觉得人，中国有句话叫做“活要见人，死要见尸”。对370来说，在这么混乱的这个事件当中，没见到真实的证据之前，我 不相信人死了。
Those tea boxes are where Mrs. Dai carefully keeps the copies of the letters she sends each week to the airline and the Malaysian government.
原来我们还提这个，你看这个基本上就是2条，第一个就是本着人道主义放人，还有一个就是在亲人没回来之前，不能停止调查和搜索。我们现在就这2条，而且我们现在集中的一点就是放人。
More than 150 letters, without a single reply. "6,000 miles away from Beijing, in western Paris, Ghislain Ouattrelot is also waiting for replies.
Bonjour.
Hello.
Bonjour.
His family was traveling on MH370. His wife, his daughter, his younger son and his girlfriend. The 4 of them flying back from a holiday in Malaysia. Day and night, this former executive from a large French cement group reads through investigation reports and press cuttings. To find out everything he can about the missing Boeing, he has even stopped working completely. He and other families have spent $50,000 to hire private detectives.
They've never found out anything official. They've told us things, but they've never brought any proof.
With time, he started thinking all this opaqueness is deliberate. He no longer has any faith in the investigators' official version.
It seems to me there are 2 key things. We are told military radars spotted the plane here. Then we are told Inmarsat spotted it on those arcs there. These are 2 things that give an indication of the plane's flight path. You need to know we've never had any proof of that. When we ask Inmarsat for the data, they refuse to give it to us. And when we ask the Malaysian military to show us the radar data, they refuse to give it to us. Why are we being refused the actual data? If it exists, what's the problem with giving it to us? I'm increasingly certain that we're not looking for the plane where it has fallen. We are being lied to and not told the truth. This is my younger son, my daughter, my wife who were on the plane.
Ghislain Ouattrelot is also having to face a problem he hadn't expected. Hundreds of people throughout the world contact him, by mail or directly by phone. They all say they've solved the MH370 enigma.
That's a person who contacted me in September. His theory is that the plane was shot down in China by the Chinese. He sent me a photo where you can see a plane tail, a radar, but, well...
On this picture, despite handwritten annotations, it's impossible to see anything other than mountains.
I've had pictures like these from people who'd seen the same thing in Indonesia, the same thing in the sea, in India, lots of photos like these.
Do you take all these messages seriously?
I tell myself that someone might contact me one day and give me some real information. It's never happened. I don't want to switch the phone off, but I'm a bit low on energy. I've been working on this for 2 years and I haven't moved an inch.
In this sometimes rather unwholesome mess, one theory has drawn his attention, the one put forward by Marc Duguin. Former airline boss, a pilot himself and a novelist. In December 2014, he published a long investigative piece in Paris Match, a French magazine. He implies that the American army could have shot the plane down. Following a technical problem or hijack, it could have got a little too close to Diego Garcia, a tiny island in the middle of the Indian Ocean home to a strategic base for the American military. Marc Duguin's hypothesis ranks among the best conspiracy theories. MH370 may have been considered as a threat and destroyed by a ground-to-air missile, no less. Deep down, I can't imagine that this plane has disappeared and that we don't know where it is. I can't believe it. But perhaps I'm wrong. I'm convinced that Western governments are guilty of remaining silent with the families for political and international strategy reasons. The novelist investigated the French and British security service circles with which he is familiar. But this time he hit a brick wall. He has even allegedly been given some advice in the form of threats. My contacts told me, be very careful. This is serious, very dangerous. Several times I got advice from intelligence people saying, watch out, you could run into trouble. If you go to the United States, they might find some child pornography on your laptop or cocaine in your room. Bearing in mind, I don't do any of these. These are called destabilization programs that can happen to people who make unwelcome investigations, and perhaps that triggered off a form of paranoia in me. Paranoia and a measure of fear won over his investigation. Marc Duguin gave up in the end. There is no proof of any American military blunder, but he's nonetheless obtained some very disturbing statements. In the Maldives, an hour's flight away from Diego Garcia. Was this plane MH370? Here's Blaine Gibson again, our debris-chasing American, who is also increasingly convinced, intrigued by the statements of residents in Kuala Lumpur. It's the third time he's coming back to this tiny speck of land at the southernmost tip of the Maldives. 3,000 inhabitants, mainly fishermen. Apart from a few seaplanes, you never see planes on the horizon here. Blaine can't understand why for the past 3 years, hardly anyone has been taking these villagers seriously, like Ahmed, whom he's already met.
Hello.
On March the 8th, 2014, about 6:30 in the morning, Ahmed was walking on this road when he saw a large plane fly over the island at low altitude.
I saw it from above. Then it went south.
Did you hear it before you saw it?
Yeah.
Yeah? And then you watched it fly and watched it get smaller.
Yeah.
And did it go up or down or level?
No, same level.
Same level.
Yeah.
Same level. Was there any smoke or steam from the engines? No?
The next day, Ahmed went to the police station.
I told them I saw the flight. It's real.
But what did they answer you?
They didn't tell anything. They think we are lying.
There are more than 20 witnesses that the police apparently didn't believe in Kuala Lumpur, according to Blaine. He introduces us to some of them.
It was red and blue.
You saw red and blue?
Yeah, red and blue. Very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very narrow lines are there.
Can you be sure it was not a seaplane?
It was not a seaplane. I travel in a seaplane, but I'm sure
not seaplane.
That is not a seaplane.
The plane really got people talking in this area. We even find new witnesses.
What color was it? A light gray color. Yeah. 2 engines.
Reports appear convincing. After all, what would be the point of lying for these villagers? Going by their descriptions, the plane with a light grey underbelly, blue and red stripes and 2 reactors really does look like MH370. In Malé, the capital, the topic is an embarrassing one for the authorities. We try to contact the Ministry of Transport. Impossible to get hold of them, so we just go there. A civil aviation department manager welcomes us. We record the conversation covertly.
A plane have been seen over.
People talk about a lot of things, but those are not verified things, so...
I just wanted to know the official comment. You understand? Just say.
Because this is concerns a lot of people who have passed away. So we should not keep up digging up things that are not verified. So we should wait until there is information. But I would suggest you contact the Malaysian authority because they have jurisdiction over this investigation.
But we met another official who holds a completely different view. Under cover of anonymity, the high-ranking manager at Malé Airport states that Kuala Lumpur residents are no liars.
I believe that they would be able to differentiate a propeller aircraft that is used for inter-island transfers in the Maldives and from a large passenger jet.
We obtained the official schedules for all the flights on March the 8th, 2014. He confirms that on that day, only 2 planes could have flown near Kuala Lumpur, but not between 6 and 6:30 in the morning, the times reported by the islanders.
There's no aircraft, that could have gone near Kuala Lumpur according to this information. Even on this, there is no aircraft that would have gone over Kuala Lumpur.
Here too, the conclusion is that the plane spotted above the Maldives on March the 8th, 2014 could well have been MH370. This makes Blaine Gibson really angry with the Malaysian investigators who have never set foot here.
They should have come here and investigated. They should have come here and talked to them. I spoke with a Malaysian investigator who wanted to come. That was like 2 months after, when they were doing the investigation, 2 months after the plane disappeared. His trip was not approved because of one reason. The witnesses in the Maldives, their sighting contradicted the Inmarsat data, which puts the plane 1,000 miles off the coast of Australia. Well, they've been looking now for more than 2 years based solely on the Inmarsat data and found nothing.
If the plane is going southeast, almost south, what is in this direction? Does it make sense?
If it turns from here and it heads south or a little bit southeast, it's headed towards Gone on Adu Atoll, and it's also headed towards the British Indian Ocean territory, which includes Diego Garcia.
Who to believe? The villagers who saw the Boeing in Kuala Lumpur? Or a satellite that places it off the coast of Australia? What is certain is that on the morning of March the 8th, the plane could not have been in the Maldives at 6 and in the south of the Indian Ocean at 8, as stated in the official report. The 2 sites are 3,000 miles apart. Nonetheless, if MH370's route was via the Maldives, it would make it easier to understand why the supposed debris items were all found on African coasts, rather than Australia. Doubts first appeared on July the 29th, 2015, on a beach in Reunion Island. While searchers were getting nowhere at the other end of the Indian Ocean, a passerby found a piece of plane wing by chance. It appears to be what is known as a flaperon. A serial number quickly confirms that this is in fact a piece of the Malaysia Airlines plane. French justice seizes it and sends it to Toulouse straight away for analysis. The discovery raises many hopes. France promises a major boost to the investigation.
Les experts mènent leurs travaux dans les meilleurs délais afin de pouvoir apporter une information complète et fiable le plus rapidement possible aux familles des victimes à qui nous pensons ce soir. Merci.
For a year and a half, biologists, ocean current experts and army engineers worked away from the public eye. We were able to read their report. To understand why the plane disappeared, they looked for explosive traces, examined how the piece had broken off. To ascertain the crash site from which the flaperon would have started drifting, they tested its buoyancy in a seawater pool, studied the Indian Ocean's currents, and even dissected the shells clinging to its surface. The report's conclusions are rather disappointing and, above all, very imprecise. The Indian Ocean is very big, but one fascinating appendix was leaked on the internet. It concerns a study by Météo France. Experts attempted to reconstruct the flaperon's trajectory in reverse, with a major unknown. Was it pushed by the wind, or mostly carried by currents, completely submerged as suggested by the shells? A French weather expert is on the line.
J'ai examiné deux hypothèses qui donnent évidemment des dérives très différentes. J'ai des probabilités plus ou moins fortes. Après, oui, il viendrait plutôt plus au nord, oui.
In the conclusions, one scenario stands out from the others. In other words, the wreck might be in this huge area, whereas we're looking for it here. And that's not all. Since the spring of 2016, increasing numbers of debris items supposedly from the Boeing have been found. All of them in the western part of the Indian Ocean. South Africa, Tanzania, Mozambique, Mauritius, and of course Madagascar. Remember the debris items we found on Sainte Marie Beach? We tried to have one of them authenticated. In Kuala Lumpur, one of the Malaysia Airlines directors finally agreed to meet us. He will be our one and only contact with a representative from the airline.
This is the flight management thing, as you can see. This building.
Fuad Sharuji remembers the night of March the 8th, 2014 perfectly well. He was there.
I'll probably arrive more like about 4 o'clock in the morning because it takes a while for me to drive from home. I was first notified about 2:30.
From the very start, Fuad Sharuji has been managing the media crisis and relations with families. Now his company is meant to be collaborating with investigators, but he's a little embarrassed to admit he doesn't know much. Amazingly, he has never even heard of what we are about to show him.
Look at this. This one. We think it's the most interesting piece because do you think it's possible it comes from the economy class screens? Is it possible or not?
It is possible, yes. It is possible. but it has to be analyzed by the experts. It definitely looks like an aircraft part. From your description, it could be from the in-flight entertainment system monitor, the backrest of the economy seat. Yep, it is possible.
Have you seen this in your 777 before? You recognize it?
Of course. This is from our 777 monitor, the in-flight entertainment system monitor on the economy class.
You've never seen these pieces?
Not these ones, no.
But it is the very first pieces found in Madagascar. How come you haven't seen this? You didn't know?
No, the ones that we knew was the flap that was found in June, the big piece of flap. That one has been sent to ATSB. But these items are still in Madagascar. They must be investigated. Every single piece can be an evidence.
The director of Malaysia Airlines crisis team finds out about the existence of several potential pieces of wreckage recovered 3 months earlier, thanks to French television. Hardly reassuring. The only debris he knows about are the officially authenticated pieces. There are 8 of them. A few wing pieces, a reactor cover, and 2 internal panel components. But to date, more than 30 alleged debris items have been found. It's impossible to know how many the investigators have really got. Australians are well aware of these findings, but they've made their own calculations and remain convinced that we should look for the wreck off their coast. Blaine Gibson, who is thought to have discovered 15 debris items by himself, finds all this woefully inadequate.
I, who have never been a conspiracy theorist at all, I'm the farthest thing from it, I am beginning to think that this may be indicative of a major cover-up, a major hiding of the truth. I'm concerned about that. I'm worried about that. I don't want to believe that. And they could answer all of that by simply going and picking it up and doing their job under the treaty, but they're not going.
Ghislain Wachelos has also stopped believing in the investigators' good faith. On a December morning, resigned yet full of hope, he's decided to go in search of debris in Madagascar, in Blaine Gibson's footsteps.
What is your current state of mind?
I don't know. The anger's fading a little, but it's still there. The fight's still on, so yes, I'm fighting, persevering. I have to keep going.
Do you get the feeling the situation is completely incredible?
Yes, it's completely incredible. It's such a big deal that someone will end up talking. We have to carry on making noise. Somebody's seen something that's going to give us something one day. I'm certain of that.
Continuing the investigations, even by himself, to lift the mystery a little, and perhaps also to dull the pain. During the trip that brought together half a dozen families, a team of volunteers found 2 debris items that may have come from the interior cabin of MH370. 2 new pieces of the biggest jigsaw ever invented.